It was just after dawn when we came upon Holbeche House, the sky still bruised with the night's storm. The wind cut through our cloaks and sent dead leaves skittering across the yard. Word had reached the sheriff that the papist traitors, those who would have blown King and Parliament to dust, had holed themselves up here like cornered foxes. We approached carefully, for the place looked half ruined already. The night before, so I later learned, the fools had tried to dry wet gunpowder before the fire, and it had blown half the parlour to kindling. A black blast mark stained the wall like some devil's hand, and broken shutters banged in the wind. The first shot from within cracked out before any challenge could be called. It tore splinters from the gate beside me. Someone shouted that the conspirators meant to fight to the last man. I remember thinking how strange it was. Men who had crept in shadows for weeks now making such a loud, desperate noise. The sheriff's men returned fire. Muskets roared, and smoke drifted thick and acrid through the bare branches. I saw movement at an upper window. 2 figures leaning out, firing wildly. Later, I learned they were the Wright brothers, Jack and Kit. Brave, or mad, or both. When our men rushed the door, I followed them, my legs shook. Inside was chaos. Smoke, broken furniture, powder scattered across the floor like black sand. One conspirator, Percy, I think, staggered past me, with his doublet torn and blood soaking his sleeve. He held a pistol, but his hand shook too badly to aim. Gunfire thundered in the hallway. I saw Thomas Wintour fall near the stairs, clutching his arm where the musket ball had smashed through. He cried out for God's mercy, though none of this had shown mercy to anyone. In the yard behind the house, the fight ended as quickly as it had begun. Catesby and Percy tried to flee, but were struck down by a single volley. The same shot, they said, passed through them both. I saw their bodies carried inside, their faces strangely calm, as though they had embraced the end. When the firing stopped, the only sounds were the groans of the wounded and the storm whistling through the shattered windows. The sheriff declared the king safe at last, though no one cheered. It did not feel like victory, only the grim settling of accounts. I left Holbeche House before noon. Smoke still drifted from the broken roof, and the dead were laid out like butchered animals. I walked away with the cold biting at my heels, thinking how close England had come to ruin, and how these men now paid for it with their blood on a farmhouse floor.
I swear before God that I knew nothing of the plot till the very end. We had ridden hard from Huddington, soaked to the bone from the storm, and every man looked worn and hollow-eyed. Mr. Catesby himself seemed a haunted figure, muttering that all was lost since Master Fawkes had been taken. When we reached Holbeche House, the wind howled through the trees like some omen of doom. The place was cold, near abandoned. Rain had blown in through broken panes and pooled on the floors. Still, the gentleman ordered the powder to be dried. For a last defence, they said. I remember the moment it happened. We had laid the powder out before the hearth, and someone, I think it was Rookwood, tossed more wood onto the fire. A spark snapped like the crack of a whip. Then came a flash brighter than daylight. The room burst apart. I was thrown clean across it, deafened, my hair singed and my hands blackened. When I crawled up, choking on dust, I saw Mr. Grant, staggering blindly with his face scorched, and Master Digby swearing the house was cursed. The walls were scorched black, and smoke poured through every crack, as if the devil had been loosed inside. Dawn had barely touched the sky when riders were spotted on the road, the sheriff's men. Panic swept the house like fire through thatch. Some spoke of surrender, but Mr. Catesby would hear none of it. We stand, "And we die as gentlemen," he said. I had never heard a man sound so tired. The first musket shot shattered the kitchen window. Glass rained down like hail. Gunfire roared from every side, echoing through the halls. Mr. Percy and the Wright brothers fired from the upper windows, smoke thick around them. They looked like ghosts in the dim light. I hid beneath the staircase with 2 other servants. We shook with every blast. I saw Thomas Wintour stumble past, bleeding from the arm, his sword dragging behind him. He asked for water, but I had none to give. When the sheriff's men forced the door, I heard the clash of steel and the cries of dying men. In the yard, a volley rang out, one crash, like thunder. Someone shouted that Percy and Catesby had fallen. After that, the fighting faltered. The plot ended with a whimper, not a roar. I crept outside when the noise died. The morning was cold and grey. Mr. Catesby lay by the hedge with Master Percy, both struck clean through. Their blood soaked into the wet leaves. They stared up at the sky, unblinking, as though death had come almost gently to them. I surrendered myself there and then. I had no stomach left for running. Holbeche House smouldered behind me, and the wind kept blowing ash through the yard like scattered judgment. That was the end of it. All their hopes, all their fury, all their nights, spent whispering treason, finished in a broken house and a cold November morning.
I was returning from the well, the sky heavy with the last of the night's rain, when I saw them thundering along the lane. 6 or 7 riders, though it was hard to tell for certain. All of them splashed head to heel in mud, their cloaks clinging to them like wet seaweed. They rode as men hunted. No talk between them, no backward glance, only the ceaseless drum of hooves on the sodden road. Their horses looked near spent, foam at the bit and steam rising from their flanks. One rider, tall, pale-faced, swayed in his saddle as if ready to fall. I learned later that was Robert Catesby himself. When they passed me, a blast of cold wind followed them, carrying the reek of wet gunpowder. I'd never smelled it before that day, but once you've caught it, you know it forever. Sharp, bitter, like metal and smoke. It clung to them as if they had ridden through fire. Behind them, half a mile or so, I saw another pair, men struggling to keep up. One clutched his arm to his chest, blood soaking through his sleeve. He rode with his head bent low, teeth clenched. Later, they said that was Thomas Winter, wounded from some mishap with powder. I stepped aside into the hedge, though truth be told, I was rooted to the spot with fear. The horses' hooves sent muddy water splashing over my skirts, but not a one of them spared me a glance. They looked neither left nor right, only forward, as though the devil himself drove them on. When they disappeared over the rise, the lane felt suddenly emptier than before, as though something dark had passed through it and left the air hollow. The birds did not sing for a long while after. Not an hour later, a second company rode by. Sheriff's men, armed to the teeth, spurring their mounts hard. One called out, asking which way the traitors had gone. I pointed after the first riders, though I felt sick doing it. I heard gunfire around midday, distant cracks drifting on the damp wind from the direction of Holbeche House. By nightfall, rumour had already flown faster than any horse. The plotters were dead or taken, the house near wrecked, the king saved. But I could not forget the sight of them passing me, faces grey, cloaks torn, eyes wild with fear and frenzy. Whatever treason they carried in their hearts, in that moment they looked only like men who knew their fate was galloping right behind them.